here's how we go from individual demand curves for a good to the market demand curve for the good. What we do is called horizontal summation, and here's an example. This table here shows the quantity demanded for cell phone data by a consumer SEMA and another consumer N. This table shows that SEMA demands 4 gigabytes of data and N demands 3 gigabytes of data at $10. If price goes up to 20, SEMA demands 3 gigabytes, N demands 2, and so on. Let's assume that SEMA and N are the only two consumers in this market. Then in order to get the market demand curve, what we do is we add quantities at each price. So at $10, the combined demand of the two consumers, which in this simple example makes up the market, is equal to $7. And so we have 7 here. Similarly, at $20, if we add quantity demanded by SEMA N by N, we get 5. And then we can do the rest of the calculation. And graphically, what this looks like is we can plot SEMA's demand curve. So this is an approximation of SEMA's demand for cell phone data. All I'm doing here is I'm saying, okay, at $10, she demands 4. So at $10, I'm doing this, and then I'm plotting the remaining points and drawing a straight line through the points. I can also approximately draw Ann's demand. Okay, let me do it again. Okay, so this is SEMA's demand, this is Ann's demand. What we have done now is we have added horizontally the quantity demanded by each consumer, and then we have these prices and these quantities, and we can get the market demand. We can use the same method to arrive at the market supply curve. What we have to do is we have to add the quantity supplied by each producer at a given price, and we have to do that for all prices, and we'll get the market supply curve. One of the first questions that modern economists thought about seriously was the question of where prices came from, and why is it that some goods are cheap and others expensive. When they started thinking about it, the first theory of prices focused on the supply side, and it was thought that goods that are expensive are more difficult to produce and more expensive to produce, and as a result were more expensive. And then economists moved on to thinking seriously about the value of the good to the consumers, which is captured by the demand curve. And they thought goods that are more in demand or more valuable to consumers would be more expensive. It was much later that economists put both demand and supply together to think about prices, and that's what we are going to talk about when we talk about the observed price of a good. You may have seen this graph before. This graph puts market demand of a good with the market supply of a good and shows that the intersection of the two curves determine price that we observe in a market and the quantity that's traded in the market. You can use the framework of demand and supply to answer a question like this. Why is it that the prices of some goods, like airline tickets, increase during the months of heaviest consumption, while others, like sweet corn, go down? You should think about this question and see if you can answer this using the demand and supply model. Here are some more questions that will require you to know the demand and supply model. Here you observe something happening to the price and quantity of a good, and you're being asked to decipher what must have caused it. In this question, we are telling you what has happened in the market, and then we're telling you, or we're asking you to predict the effect of these changes on the price and the quantity. And these are questions that we'll take up in the lecture.